You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. It's February the 9th, so of course we're talking SEC win totals for next football season. Brad Crawford from 247 Sports, good enough to join us right now. Brad, we always appreciate a couple of minutes, man. How are you?
Hey, no problem at all, man. Yeah. Win totals, I'm expecting them to come out from Vegas here in about mid-March and figure I'd give the readers what they want about a month early.
Heck yeah, man. I said it's manna from Sports Talk Heaven. We get to talk win totals in February. So give me the process here that you use. So these aren't your season projections. This is what you're thinking Vegas is going to do. How did you come up with this?
This is based on, in conversations with Vegas odds makers, friends of mine over the years who set these preseason win totals 8 months out from the season. And basically they're trying to find a number where they're going to get equal value or, play from all sides, whether it's you take LSU under 9.5 wins or you take LSU over 9.5 wins, for instance. So it's not a final record projection, but it is based around the 2023 schedule, the personnel these teams have coming back, and just kind of what the off-season hype meter says about each program.
Well, there's going to be a lot of hype around LSU, and a lot of people here are expecting this is going to be a preseason top 10 team. So you have them pegged at 9. How did you land on 9?
Yeah, between 9 and 9.5 for me, largely because that FSU opener is a game that a lot of SEC teams, really outside of Alabama, do not have on the schedule this year. South Carolina being another one against Clemson, that's a tough game. But LSU is going to face the arguably preseason ACC favorite down in Orlando on September 3rd. That's a game that I think the projected line for that one, again, 8 months out here, I'd probably go Noles minus 2.5. And if I'm a bettor, I'll gladly take LSU in that game, given that, as I mentioned, preseason hype around FSU and the roster, Jordan Travis, all those guys coming back. And then there's road trips to Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. Obviously, I think LSU will be favored against the two Mississippi schools, probably not Bama on the road. So those 4 games, FSU and those 3 SEC road games, in my opinion, will determine if this team, goes 10-2 or potentially goes 9-3.
Yeah, one of the really interesting things, of course, Tennessee was LSU's rotating cross-divisional this past year, and we know how that went. Now LSU gets a trip to Missouri as their rotating cross-divisional, which I would assume you would have LSU favored there.
That's a win, yeah. I think LSU will be favored in every home game as well. Arkansas, Auburn, I think Florida in November comes to Baton Rouge, and then that season finale against A&M, which that's a huge game for Jimbo Fisher, man. Yeah. Look, if A&M is 5-6 in that game going in, miss a bowl game again, Jimbo might be out.
Man, you know what though? What's interesting, Brad, and Brad Crawford from 247 Sports is with us. You do have the Aggies projecting them at 7.5. So the old Texas 8-4 jokes would ramp right back up again if it plays out that way, if they go over the 7.5. Look, it was obviously a disappointing year. How much room is there for this A&M team?
Yeah, A&M's one of 5 teams, man, that I wrote a few weeks ago is facing a ton of pressure. I mean, Ohio State was one of those teams. Miami was another one. And you have A&M going to Miami in week 2, which is really a must-win game for Jimbo Fisher and Mario Cristobal as far as 2 teams that I expect to be inside the top 25. But I think Auburn's going to be better in the SEC West. That's not an easy game in September for A&M. And then A&M goes to Tennessee in October, which that could be a tough game if Joe Milton and that offense is as good as advertised in that Orange Bowl. We saw the early glimpse. So A&M's main issue to me still is, will it have elite quarterback play? And even Kellen Mond, despite him being a 3-year starter a couple of years ago, he wasn't an elite player, but A&M was able to get a 9-1, 10-1 season out of him. So Jimbo Fisher has to have elite quarterback play for that offense to work. I know he brought in Bobby Petrino, but we know that Jimbo's fingerprints are still going to be all over that game plan.
Brad, what about Alabama? 10.5. It's interesting. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? We don't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback there. Yet, despite the quote-unquote down year for Alabama, here they are right back projected to be at or near the top of the SEC again.
Yeah, I took the under on Alabama last year at 11.5 and nailed that when they, lost that early game. I think it was Tennessee was their first loss of the season before losing to LSU.
Yeah.
I think it's another schedule where, Nick Saban has to kind of take a step back and am I going to be a team that makes the playoff or not? They get Middle Tennessee in week 1 and then they host Texas. So Bama might not have the quarterback situation figured out by week 2 against a very good Longhorns team that I think has a chance to make the playoff. I know Texas has a ton of preseason hype all the time, but this is Steve Sarkisian's best team so far. Really good quarterback depth too. And then you look at a game at A&M in October. That's a game Bama should win. They host Tennessee, and then they get the open week before LSU November 4th. That's the game I think most of us national guys are pointing to. The winner of that game takes the SEC West like we saw last season.
He's Brad Crawford from 247 Sports. You mentioned this a bit ago, Brad, but you got 5 teams at either 7 or 7.5. Ole Miss, Arkansas, South Carolina, Auburn, and Texas A&M. Which team among that group maybe surprises you the most that they're among that group, better or for good or worse? And you know what? I mean, we could even throw Kentucky and Florida each at 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think Auburn is a team that a lot of folks are going to take that maybe miss a bowl game in Hugh Freeze's first season. I think the Tigers can win 8 games. Freeze did a great job in the portal remaking this offensive line entirely. I think he signed 3 starters who are going to be, day one guys up front for Auburn. And I really love this schedule. The Tigers should be 3-0 going to College Station for their SEC opener. That's an evenly matched game there, I think. And then you're going to have to get past that 4-game gauntlet. That starts with A&M and then Georgia at LSU and then Ole Miss. If Auburn can find a way to split those 4 games, it's pretty much smooth sailing from there before the Iron Bowl against Bama. So Hugh Freeze, Auburn team, if Robbie Ashford is as good as he was at times at quarterback last season, despite, Auburn not being all that great, I think Freeze and that offense is going to improve. And Auburn's a team that if the win total is at 7, I would take the over.
Georgia's boring. I don't want to ask about them, but I'll ask you one more. I mean, it's just what they are, right?
Schedule's too easy, man. Yeah,
it's what they are. It's just the only question is, do they sleepwalk somewhere and trip up once? Florida. I was teeing you up, and I thought that's the direction that you'd go with the previous question. But the freeze dynamic is interesting. Is Florida a team that? I mean, look, they need to. They're not used to being what they've been. Is that a team that needs to take a big step this year that's capable of maybe outpacing what you have pegged there as 6.5 wins?
For the perception of the program, Billy Napier has to get to 8 wins this season. I'm not sure if he can. He mentioned last July at SEC Media Days before he finished 6-7, we have no depth, guys. We have to build this program, have to have depth. I think that showed early. Florida maybe was jumped the gun a little bit by beating Utah and maybe impressed us to the point where we thought Florida would be better than it was. But this is another season where they open up at Utah. It's going to be a tougher game because it's on the road. I think that game got changed to a Thursday night. Road teams in college football on Thursday night, and they lose like 81% of the time. It's crazy for the last 10 years. And then their first SEC home opener is against Tennessee. I think Tennessee's the better team there. They have to go to Kentucky. Florida's lost at Kentucky in recent years when they had to go to Lexington. Got to go to South Carolina. I know Florida beat South Carolina by 30 points this season, but then they had that tailspin where they lost to Vanderbilt, FSU, and then did not show up in the Vegas Bowl. And then November, really Halloween through the end of the season is pretty brutal. It's Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Florida State. So unless Graham Mertz, the Wisconsin quarterback that Napier handpicked out of the portal, is a 25 touchdown type guy, I don't think he is. I don't see Florida getting 8 wins. So I think odds makers are probably going to set that number at 6.5 or 7.
Well, we'll get those early numbers from Vegas next month, but we always appreciate an early look. He's Brad Crawford. You can follow him on Twitter at bcrawford247. Give him a follow if you want to read the pieces up there at 247 Sports. Man, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for a couple of minutes.
No problem at all, man.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.